Welcome to South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, What Parents Need to Know webinar. This presentation is geared for parents of youth from late elementary age through high school. Although the focus is for older students, the basic information is good for all parents to hear. We hope to give you information that will answer many questions you may have about the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, commonly referred to as DDSN. We would like you to be familiar with the director and coordinators across the state. Laura Elder is the Director of Transition and covers Rock Hill, Richland Counties 1 and 2, and the PD region. Jennifer Quinn is the Transition Coordinator for Rich Lex 5, Lexington School Districts, and the Low Country. Rhonda Mumford is the Transition Coordinator for the Upstate and surrounding areas, including Edgefield, Saluda, and Newberry. Our contact information will be listed at the end of this presentation and is also located on our website. Our role is to support a smooth transition for DDSN eligible students exiting high school to the adult world. We do this by working with school districts and agency partners at the state and local level to educate them about DDSN and effective transition practices. All three coordinators have worked in school systems and work to help build connections to make the transition from school services to adult services easier. We also work to educate families about DDSN by providing information about how adult services work and support the work of DDSN case managers in facilitating a smooth transition from school to the adult world. Topics that will be discussed. This presentation is designed to help parents have a better understanding of DDSN and why it is important to connect with DDSN early if your child needs services. We want to make sure you are equipped with the proper tools and information to prepare for your child's future. The topics that will be discussed are: who does the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, DDSN, serve? What is transition and how do things change after school? What services are available through DDSN providers? How does applying early to DDSN benefit my child? How do I apply for my child to get services? Do I have a case manager? If not, how do I get one? How are DDSN services funded and what are waivers? And finally, what are options for my child after school? What is DDSN and who do we serve? South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, DDSN, is a state agency that plans, develops, oversees, and funds services for people with disabilities. We serve South Carolina residents who have one of the following severe lifelong disabilities: an intellectual disability, mild, moderate, or severe, autism spectrum disorder, a head injury such as a traumatic brain injury, a spinal cord injury, or conditions that are related to these disabilities. An example of a related disability may be someone with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, or severe epilepsy. As a parent, it is important to know the type of disability that your child has. We understand that families are exposed to lots of lingo and this can be confusing. If you are unsure of the name of your child's disability, your child's school has likely done testing and they may have determined your child eligible for an IEP, an individual education plan. Your child's disability will be listed on the IEP. If you are not sure, the school psychologist, guidance counselor, or your child's teacher may be able to help you to better understand the classification. DDSN does not serve all students with disabilities, but only those with lifelong disabilities we just mentioned. DDSN also has an eligibility division that can assist you if you suspect your child has a disability. DDSN services continue for many years and stages of life. You may have first become aware of DDSN when your child was small, as we work with high-risk infants and early intervention. However, as your child enters school, many of the services, such as speech, occupational therapy, and physical therapy, are met by the school district or through regular state plan Medicaid. Schools provide an opportunity for your child to learn and grow in a safe environment. Often when youth with disabilities are in school, they do not need services from DDSN because they are being met through these other programs. As a parent, it is important to think of the types of needs and supports your child will need after they leave school and enter the adult world, when the supports of the school and programs for children end. What services are available through DDSN? People of any age may be eligible for DDSN services. However, eligible adults often have greater needs, and DDSN directs many services to adults. Every person has different needs, so each person will have a plan for services that is different. Let's talk about some of the DDSN services that are available. Adult services work differently than school services or services for children. Individual services. Individual services are those services provided to an individual to meet their needs. Some examples are in-home support or adult companion services, where a person identifies a goal and can get support from a companion to help learn the skills to meet the goal, such as learning to use the microwave or cooking a meal. Another example might be personal care assistance, where someone provides assistance with daily living activities such as bathing, dressing, and eating. These services are provided in a person's home or a community-based setting. Family support services. Family support services can be a service such as respite to allow families a break from day-to-day care or a summer camp program. Additionally, things like modifications to the home or assistive technology are services that make caring for an individual easier. Adult day services. Day services are programs where adults can attend during the daytime hours to receive services. These programs include career preparation training to help develop skills needed for successful employment, or support services which provide supervision when a parent has to work. Employment services. Individual employment services are provided in an inclusive work setting and may include a job coach to support a person in obtaining a job, on-the-job training, and support in keeping a job. Group employment could be a mobile work crew or an enclave where the individual works as part of a group in a community setting. Residential services. Residential services are high in demand, but DDSN has a range of living options based on the support needs of the individual. This can range from fairly independent living, such as our supported living programs. In this type of setting, a person lives in their own apartment with some supports for things like budgeting money. Other options are community training homes that are located in local communities. These homes generally have 4 residents per house with 24-hour supervision. We also provide intermediate care facilities with nursing staff for those with more significant medical needs. Prevention and genetic services. DDSN also provides prevention and genetic services. People often do not know that we operate Greenwood Genetics Center and can provide testing to families. Additionally, we provide training and education to help reduce disabilities such as those that result from accidents, traumatic brain injury, and spinal cord injury. Why engage with DDSN now? DDSN supports people at all stages of life, but transitioning from student life to adult life is a big transition. So what does that mean for your child? It means you need to start planning for transition sooner rather than later. Leaving school is a big transition. Transition from high school to adulthood requires planning. You should not wait until your child completes high school, then it's too late. You and your family, along with the teacher, need to discuss plans for your child and set goals each year that would help with a seamless transition from high school to adulthood. Families and students need to be aware of options for them after school and know what is required to meet their desired goals after high school. Part of planning is researching what is available. Ask, what are the options for my child after school? Think about the skills needed to do these activities and start working toward these post-school goals while still in high school. Transition is a backward planning process. You need to first determine what your future goal is, then evaluate where your child's skills are in relation to that goal, and then develop the plan to get there. You will want to work with your school and other agencies such as South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation, who is the state agency for work to assist in this planning with you. If your child is already with DDSN, your DDSN case manager can also be part of this planning. Each high school has a South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation Counselor assigned, and you can work with your child's IEP teacher to get connected. Now let's take a look at some of the changes you as a parent need to be aware of regarding the difference between services as a child and services as an adult. Key differences between school services and adult services. There are many differences between the services a student will receive and the service in the adult world. School services are required for students and guaranteed. Schools are required to identify students who need special education services and must initiate evaluations and schedule IEP meetings to be sure special education services are in place. Generally, your special education teacher will take care of this for you. Adult services are not guaranteed, and services need to be requested by the family or individual, as well as following up. This is a big change from the way services work in a school setting for children. To get services for an adult, the person must actively seek their services. They must have applied to DDSN and be determined eligible. Once eligible, a case manager will assess the person's needs and connect the person to services that will meet those needs. Sometimes, funding for services when you are an adult are not readily available. In other cases, space in the desired program is limited. When that happens, the person is placed on a waiting list for a program or for the funds to provide services. The good news is you can apply early before the program or funds are needed. You need to be aware that you need to work with your case manager before you need the services or funding. It is very important during the transition process that you are aware of these changes. It is important to apply early because services are not guaranteed like they are in high school. Please understand the need to plan ahead and look at the available options and what is needed to access these options for you when your child leaves school. Why do I need to apply now? As mentioned, you are able to wait for programs that may be needed before you actually need them. For that reason, the sooner you apply for DDSN services, the sooner you can begin waiting for programs that will likely be needed in the future. We are often asked, when should I apply for my child? We suggest you apply as early as possible, but at least by late elementary school age, 11 or 5th or 6th grade. If you have not yet applied, it's never too late. So let's look at how you can apply. How do I apply? Families are great at supporting their students. Often with Medicaid and school services, additional support from DDSN is not needed. So while your child may have become eligible for DDSN services as a baby or toddler, you may not have engaged with DDSN for some time and may not be aware that your child is still eligible. If you are unsure, you can find out by calling the 800 number and asking. If you are already a client, they can tell you who your case manager is or help you choose one so that you can call the case manager for assistance. Please keep in mind that applying to DDSN is free. Your income and resources are not considered for eligibility, and no one will come to your home. Applying to DDSN does not obligate you to receive any services, and it does not affect any benefits such as Social Security. Apply today. Step 1. All application to DDSN begins with a call to the 800 screen number listed above. This process will take about 15 minutes. We have a flyer on the DDSN website on the Youth Transition Services page that covers the information on the next few slides about the application and eligibility process. At the end of this presentation, you will be able to look at the DDSN website. You may want to download the flyer and use this as a guide to prepare for the phone call. Information you need. When you call the 800 screening number, you will need to have your child's full name, date of birth, your current address, his or her social security number, Medicaid number if applicable, and a working callback number and email if you have one. The screening operator will ask you about your residency in South Carolina. If you are uncertain about your child's disability, the information can be found on his or her Individual Education Plan, the IEP, or you can ask his or her teacher before you make the call. The reason to know your disability is because we have one process for those applying for autism and another for those with other disabilities. For those applying under the autism spectrum disorder, your intake will be completed by the same process as the others, except the autism division will assist you with intake. For all other disabilities, the operator will ask you to choose your top 3 choices for providers to assist you with the process. If you are not familiar with the list of providers given to you, it's okay. Choose any one of the choices. Your main goal is to get the process started, and the provider's job is to assist you in gathering information to help document your child's disability and assist you in the process. After the call. The call starts the process, but then we need your help to keep things moving. Please check the mail for a letter from DDSN indicating we have received your request to be considered for eligibility with DDSN. You should get a call within 2 weeks. If you are applying under autism, it will come from the autism division, and it will come from an intake provider for the other disability categories. If you don't receive a call, call the 800 number back and let them know. It is important to return phone calls and to return forms that need to be signed to keep the process moving. These steps are needed so we can get information and review it to decide if your child meets the requirements for DDSN eligibility. After several attempts to get information that are unsuccessful, your case will be closed. If you have questions, please feel free to visit our website. You will want to select the Services tab and then the Applying for Services link. If this doesn't answer your questions, feel free to call one of the coordinators and we will do our best to assist you. Case managers are the local contact. Once you have completed the application process and your child has been accepted in the system, you will be instructed to select a case manager. Case managers for DDSN are very much like individual educational plan case managers, your IEP case managers are in the school. Your DDSN case manager is the local point of contact in coordinating DDSN services for you and your child. Maintaining communication with your DDSN case manager is key. We rely on families to help us stay in touch. It is important to keep your contact information current, such as your phone number and address. While in school, students often have inactive case management, and case managers often have hundreds of people on their caseloads. So many students have inactive case management while in school. During the final years of school, we will reach out to them and to you and your case managers to let them know you have needs and discuss the options and plans for after high school. DDSN case managers are key. It is the job of the case manager to assess the needs of your child and family and to help develop a plan to address those needs. Case managers are able to link the consumer to needed services or can make referrals to link students to other resources outside of DDSN, such as the South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation or other Medicaid services or programs. Please be aware that if a student does not have one of the DDSN waivers, they are most likely they most likely have inactive case management services. Case managers bill Medicaid or waivers to be reimbursed for their work, and if a student doesn't have Medicaid or a waiver, the services they provide are not reimbursable. This makes it difficult for case managers to attend IEP meetings and to be actively involved on a regular basis for students without waivers. South Carolina DDSN is a state agency whose role is to provide oversight, but services are actually carried out to the individual or family through a network of local service providers. This slide provides an example from a local county. The service that is highlighted here inside the umbrella is case management services. In this example, there are 5 providers in the county that are DDSN approved providers. Each county has a local DSN board that is a public provider, and then in this example, there are 4 other private providers that also deliver the service or case management in this county. With DDSN services, the family chooses the provider from the list of available choices. This is very different from a school setting, where you attend the high school in the zone you live, and the student is assigned a specific teacher, not one of their choosing. Families select the case management provider they wish and can switch case management providers at any time, no matter the location. So in this example, all of these providers offer case management services. Each one of these providers provides basically the same service, but families may have a preference of one versus the other. This is sometimes confusing to families. Families don't realize they have a choice, and sometimes families are not aware that the local agency provider is providing the services for DDSN. Also, families may be receiving many different services, and they can get each service from a different provider. For example, a consumer may have the ARC of South Carolina as their case management provider, but have respite services or a job coach from Disabilities, formerly the York County Disability and Special Needs Board. You can learn more about available services providers by visiting our website as new providers are added or providers change the services they provide. From our DDSN homepage, you will want to select the Services tab, highlighted in yellow, and then select Find a Service Provider. We suggest scrolling down and selecting Search our provider directory by service and county. From there, you can select the services, such as case management, and your county. This will generate a list. If you have more questions about this, please feel free to reach out to your DDSN transition coordinator or your case manager and ask them about choice in service providers. Funding of services. Another big change between high school and the adult world is the funding of services. Funding of adult services is very different from the school. Adult services are eligibility based, and there are requirements for the funding from sources such as Medicaid and for waiver programs. DDSN receives funding from a variety of sources. The amount of funding can vary from year to year based on state and federal budgets. DDSN funds services from state funds, Medicaid funds, and from Medicaid home and community-based waivers. 95% of the services DDSN provides are funded through Medicaid programs. Although Medicaid is not required to be a consumer of DDSN services, having Medicaid provides more avenues for obtaining services that are needed. Adult Medicaid is different than a Medicaid for children. Family Connection of South Carolina is a great resource for helping families to learn more about Medicaid and how they may obtain this for youth and young adults with disabilities. Let's talk about waivers. Medicaid home and community-based waivers are one of the main funding sources for people with disabilities. We are going to start with a little bit of history. Before the 1980s, people with disabilities were often served in institutions. Fortunately, with disability laws and advocacy, people are now being served most often in their homes and local communities. As a part of this process, Medicaid waiver programs were established to allow people to take the money that would have been used to serve the person with a disability in the institution and use those funds to keep the person closer to home and allow more choice in how the funds are used to care for the person. South Carolina has 7 different home and community-based waiver programs. DDSN operates 3 of these waiver programs. Waivers can be thought of little pots of money. When a person is granted a waiver, their needs are assessed and funds are approved to meet those needs. These funds pay for the services determined by the case manager to be needed. Most of our waivers are paid through Medicaid, and so your young adult needs to be Medicaid eligible in most cases to receive these waivers. Waivers are extensions of Medicaid. They pay for items that people with disabilities need. These needs are not necessarily medical. For example, a job coach may be needed to support someone in work. This might be necessary because of a person's disability, but will not be paid by your regular Medicaid or private insurance. So you may think that you don't need Medicaid because you have private health insurance, but your young adult may need Medicaid to access some of these funds for other needed services. As we mentioned before, adult Medicaid is different than for children. There are many programs for people with disabilities to access Medicaid, and your case manager or Family Connection of South Carolina may be resources in helping you explore this area. As a parent, this may be something you will want to investigate as part of the transition planning process. We will discuss the different waivers that DDSN operates. Community Supports Waiver. The Community Supports Waiver is one of the waivers that DDSN administers. Remember the great services we talked about earlier that DDSN provides? Services such as personal care services, daycare programs for career preparation, support services to provide a safe place while parents work, and individual and group employment services. These services all cost DDSN to provide. There's a cost for the staff and the facility to house these programs. Once a person is provided a waiver, the cost of these services can be paid for from these waivers based on the needs of the individual. We have a waiting list for this waiver, so you need to have your child's name added to the wait list if you want to be considered for this funding. This is a statewide list, so there are many people on it. The list fluctuates, but currently there's about a 5 to 7 year wait. A few notes about waivers. Once your name comes up on the waiting list, you will be notified. You will have an opportunity to accept or decline the waiver. This is a decision that you will want to consider for your child's future. If you have a child in school, you will want to consider the future needs of your child in addition to the child's immediate needs. If you turn down a waiver slot, you will have to request your child's name to be re-added to the list, and they will be added at the bottom of the list. Please make sure you research and make the decision that will benefit your child for his lifespan. You also need to think about what services you will want to use. Often while in school, respite or in-home supports are services that are most commonly used. This will allow you to have some relief from immediate caregiving, and you're able to select who provides the service for you and your child. Something else to consider is that you need to use at least one service monthly to keep your waiver active. If you will need services after your child leaves school, it is important to keep the waiver active so that you will be able to have the supports you need after your child exits high school. ID/RD waiver. The ID/RD waiver, which stands for Intellectual Disability Related Disability, offers some additional services that are not on the Community Service Waiver. This waiver is based on the needs of the person but does not have an annual cap. For this reason, the waiting list for this waiver is very long. People always ask us, how long is the wait? It is impossible for us to give a precise answer to this because funding always fluctuates by state and federal budgets and the needs within our state. Based on recent IDRD waiver slots awarded, the average wait was 4.2 years. However, when these people were added to the waiting list, the list was half of what it is today. This is why we encourage you to apply and get your name on these lists as early as possible. HASKI waiver. The HASKI waiver is for individuals with a head or spinal cord injury. Currently, there is not a waiting list for this waiver. A head or spinal cord injury or similar disability often is the result of an accident, and therefore, people generally do not sign up in advance for this type of waiver. Other funding. As you can see, planning ahead is the best way to have the most options available for services from DDSN. However, there are times when we can use other funds, such as state funds or other Medicaid funds, to provide short-term services during times of need. There are times when families are going through tough times and may need to have a case manager assist them in seeking out resources from other agencies or short-term assistance from one of our providers. We are very excited about one of our programs called the State-Funded Follow-Along Program. This program is for young adults who are exiting high school and do not have a waiver or other funds available to pay for the job coach follow-along services. An example of follow-along services would be a job coach to assist with extra training in the workplace or to create a visual schedule to increase independence at work. DDSN eligible youth services who have worked with South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation and obtained and kept a job for at least 90 days are eligible for these job coach follow-along services. Your DDSN case manager must request the service, so make sure you talk with your voc rehab counselor and DDSN case manager if your child is leaving school with a job. DDSN's philosophy, employment first. DDSN would like you to be aware of one of our philosophies regarding people with disabilities. One belief is that all people can work. This includes people with disabilities, even those with more significant disabilities. If a young person wants to work, it is important that their desire be considered. Work is what is the expected outcome for people without disabilities, so why should it not be considered for everyone? Work provides people with a sense of purpose, a group of people to interact with, and income to help meet their needs. Sometimes families and even other disability professionals have misunderstandings about employment, and unfortunately, work is not considered for those with more significant disabilities. Some of the confusion regarding work comes from much misinformation. One common misconception is that competitive employment means you have to work full-time or be able to compete with other employees. This is not the case. Competitive employment can be part-time and can be customized to meet the needs of the employer and employee. This can include things like a carved job, where a portion of a job is performed by one person and other parts by someone else. Self-employment is another option to be considered. Competitive means that the employer must pay a competitive wage, meaning they can't pay a person with a disability less than a person without a disability for doing the same job. Another myth is that people can't work and keep their Social Security check. Working with Social Security Administration can be daunting, and we understand these concerns. However, the government wants people to work as much as they can. There are many programs that are designed to allow people to try work without jeopardizing benefits. Benefit specialists can help you learn about work and how it affects their Social Security. If you reach out to one of the coordinators, we can connect you with the benefit specialist in your area from South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation or the local Center for Independent Living to assist you in looking at your options. At DDSN, our goal is for a person to be working in a community setting with other people without disabilities. We also like competitive employment, which means making at or above minimum wage for their work. Sheltered workshops have been overused, and there is much support for ending this type of employment. The reason for this is because, unfortunately, many people who could work have spent years making pennies in segregated facilities with little regard for the type of work a person wants or is capable. We want our consumers to have choices and for everyone to have an option to consider work. In your transition planning for your child, be aware that having community-based work experiences while your child is still in high school has been shown to be one of the biggest predictors of post-school success. We encourage you to have your school IEP plan include opportunities for careers. Transition services from the School and Pre-Employment Transition Services from South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation, or VOC Rehab, are required by law to be offered as part of your child's IEP planning. This is a great opportunity to have your team work together to put supports and services in place to build your child's future. The last day of high school should look like the first day of adult life. When you are transition planning, the goal is for the last day of high school to look like the first day of adult life. Before the end of the final year of school, you're going to want to have your plan all ready to execute. During school, you have a team of individuals, such as teachers, guiding counselors, and the VOC Rehab counselors to assist you. So you will want to take advantage of these resources to assist you in your planning during the high school years. If the goal is for your child to work after graduation, you want to already have a job in place. Working part-time while in school and then going full-time upon graduation, or at least having had some work experience prior to graduation, is important if you are planning or going directly into employment after high school. If you're looking at college, be it a traditional 2 or 4 year program, a technical school, or one of the life college programs for youth with intellectual disabilities, you will want to have toured it, applied, obtained scholarships, or student loans, and be accepted prior to walking the stage for graduation. If you're looking at an adult program from a service provider such as DDSN, you should have discussed all the options with your case manager, researched the program or services, met with the service providers, and secured the funding source or spot in the program needed to access those services. Your case manager, teachers, guiding counselors, and the 3 DDSN transition coordinators can assist you with this process. Planning is key, and we hope that all of this information has helped you in getting the process started. If you have any questions, you may contact us individually. Laura, who covers the green area of the map to include Rock Hill, Columbia, and the PD, can be reached at 803-898-1031. Jennifer, who covers the red area of the map to include Aiken, Columbia, and the Low Country, can be reached at 803-898-1004. Rhonda, who covers the yellow on the map to include Newberry to the upstate, can be reached at 803-528-9817. You can call any one of the coordinators and we will be glad to help and direct you to the correct person to speak with you. Now that the presentation is over, please take a moment to review our DDSN website under the transition link. It is filled with resources for you and your family. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.